Hello, friends. If you're watching this while it's premiering, I'm not live right now, although you can certainly feel free to leave comments and such below. But this week, I am taking vacation. I am taking a little bit of a summer vacation. And depending on where and when you grew up, summer means summer reruns. So to that end, I thought I'd share some classic videos from my early time when I was streaming just over on Facebook, things that you might not have seen, and to go by the number of views they've gotten, you probably haven't. So I thought we'd start off with this particular video. This is the first live stream I ever did, and I don't show it because there's necessarily any hidden nuggets of Dungeons and Dragons wisdom here or someone famous on as my guest, but rather as kind of a watermark to show kind of how far I've come. I take a lot of self-deprecating shots at myself, you know, with, oh, the show has no production values and so on and etc. But back then it really didn't. It was just me and my camera. It was March of 2020, and the world seemed like it was really going off the rails. And I thought, well, if I can't see my friends face to face, maybe I can reach out to people who just needed to see a familiar, friendly face and hear somebody else's voice and let them know that things are going to get better. And eventually, slowly, surely, they have. So here you go. This is the first ever long-form live stream that I've ever done for the channel. And again, it's probably not anything too special, but who knows? Maybe you'll enjoy it, if for no other reason than to see how far I've come since then. So sit back, enjoy, and I'll see you next video. Peace. Okay, all right. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone can see me. There was a request for a link to the video. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to send this over to the folks who requested it real quick. So pardon me a moment here. Let's see. Copying and pasting this link here. And oh, I don't know. That's not going to work. I'll get this. I'll get this figured out soon, I'm sure. Let me just type a message here. So that's unfortunately the best anybody's going to get. Like I said, I'll figure it out. I don't know if there's anybody out there. I hope there is. I hope everybody's doing okay. I hope everybody's healthy. Nobody's having any issues. If you're watching this, you know, I hope everything's working out for you. I know it's kind of a tough time, and it's a little odd to be maybe thinking about hobbies and, you know, tabletop gaming and stuff like that. But we got we got to stay focused on the positive. Um, and part of that is doing the things we love. And I love gaming. I love tabletop gaming. Um, so, hey, Mick Leach, how are you? I see you on the chat there, buddy. So I have an audience of one, so I can actually start talking about content now. As I said yesterday, I want to kind of reiterate something. Don't let the current situation and the Scooby-Doo that's going on break up your gaming groups or stop you from tabletop gaming. All you need to do, you're quite welcome, Rich. All you need to do to keep gaming, is if you and your players, your group, have something as simple as a mobile phone, you can set up Discord, you can use Roll20, and you can keep on gaming. And I'll reiterate a story from yesterday. I heard about a fellow who called up Gary Gygax. He was somewhere else in the world. He called up Gary and played D&D via telephone. That's good old analog over copper back in the year of our Lord, I don't know when, 74, 75, for like 8 hours. Gary obligingly played D&D with one guy on the phone for 8 hours. And I am sure that there are people back then who played with party lines and stuff like that. So if pre-home computing folks can get together and keep gaming, so can we. Whatever your game is. Something like 40K, maybe some board games that might be a little difficult. But tabletop role-playing, baby, if you're a game master, if you're a player, whether you use, miniatures and stuff like Dwarven Forge, or you're just all theater of the mind, or a mix, or you use a battle mat encounters, it doesn't matter, because there are systems out there. There are things out there that will... hello, Jim. All right, I got a fan request here. Let me just... Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Jim. Actually, that's... with the fan going, that's much better. I appreciate that. Yeah, no, there's no reason to not keep gaming. And if you need some help, you need some instruction, some direction, and you've forgotten how to do Google search, just ask me. And I'm not the godfather of online tabletop game streaming. I'm not the only authority on it. I've been doing it regularly for about 7 years now. So I've gotten a pretty good handle on it. I've gotten a pretty good handle on the communication. There's a lot of systems out there, and there's a lot of things that are new to me. Yes, we'll get into some network play Tapper in a little bit, Jim. But no, there's a lot of things that are new to me, like OBS, streaming on Twitch, and things like that, that I'm starting to explore. And as I work out the kinks on those, I'll pass that information on to anyone who wants. But right now, if you just want the 100% ultra basic, you can go on Discord. You can go on Roll20 if you don't even want to touch Discord. But if you do go Discord, and I want to emphasize this, if you do go on Discord, use the app for whatever platform you got if it's available. Don't use the web client. The Discord web client, I'm not a fan of. The Discord app is standalone. It uses its own packet processing. It doesn't go through HTML5 or whatever scripting they've got going on. Do use the downloaded app. And if after all this you still want to play some old school D&D or whatever, in this example, old school D&D, but you don't want to be bothered with trying to set up your own game, hit me up on Facebook. because of this crisis, this situation that's going on. I to keep to keep I guess I don't know, morale or whatever, to keep it up. My door is open essentially Monday nights, 10 a.m. Eastern, until nobody else wants to play anymore on Tuesday morning, because we're all kind of sequestered right now. A great many of us are just sitting at home, and I know that if you've got a 9 to 5 job, that your work day is still your work day, that you still have to get up at 8 in the morning. But by the same token, you don't have to, find out where your slacks are, shave, uh, you know, make sure you leave time to stop by Chick-fil-A to get some breakfast or whatever. So if you're like, you know what, I've got a little bit more flexible time in the mornings now, I can stay up late, I won't turn into a pumpkin, and you don't want to go with setting up your own game, feel free. Just ask. It's first edition AD&D. That's pretty much my game of choice. Um, I will not tolerate a bloodless coup of people deciding to switch that they want to play something else. It's first edition AD&D. Damn it. So that's basically a recap of what I wanted to say just about the current situation with the Mexican beer disease, with the which is not their fault. I get that. Sorry, don't sue me, Gambrinus Corporation, please. With the whole Scooby Doo, and I say it SD, everything social distancing, and I hate that phrase. I already hate that phrase. It's been in our lexicon for like 5 days now, and I hate it, and I want to burn it at the stake. So SD, social distancing, no. SD, Scooby Doo, because I love Scooby Doo. So today, to talk about fun stuff, I thought I'd talk about one of my favorite tabletop games of all time. That if you never played, I feel kind of bad almost, because I'm really going to gush about it, and it's kind of difficult to get. Although there is a tabletop version on Steam, you can buy the Steam game, and you can buy the first person game, and it's Space Hulk. Um, Insofar as I have a distressingly large amount of 40K figures sitting around, I don't really play 40K. Sometime after second edition, Games Workshop creatively, in my opinion, lost the rule of cool. Back in the days of first edition 40K, they embraced a gonzo that was so uniquely British. I mean, if you've read 2000 AD, seen the Young Ones, Spaced, Red Dwarf, then you know what I'm talking about. But as the years kind of went on, all that fell away, and they kind of embraced a more cynical, darker look and feel with their rules. But back in the day, back in 1989, I had a friend. Hello, Rob, if you're watching this. If you watch this later, Rob Wilkes, good buddy of mine, very good buddy of mine. Rob had a comic store. It was our FLGS for about a year. But there was this game. It was called Space Hulk, and I had no idea what it was. But it looked as cool as hell, because there were these little guys that looked like walking Volkswagen Beetles in terms of power armor, what their power armor looked like. And then there were xenomorphs. Basically, Games Workshop steals from everybody. So when they created the Gene Stealers, they basically just said, hey, let's put 2 more arms on an alien xenomorph, and bam, we got it, we're done. Space Hulk is essentially, sort of meta plot wise, it's aliens It's when they go into the atmosphere processor and they fight the aliens and, of course, get massacred, because that will happen in Space Hulk too. Um, it's not a terribly difficult game, but it is loads of fun. In the context of Warhammer 40,000, you have one or two squads of Terminator Marines. And Terminator Marines are Space Marines wearing a special kind of Space Marine armor that allows them to move around inside the Space Hulk. And as far as the Hulk itself, in the Warhammer 40k universe, how they travel faster than light is they go through the warp, through space warp. And in addition to being tunnels that literally go through hell to get from point A to point B, they go through space and time as well. The navigators on the ships, yes, they stole from Dune too. The astropath navigators, if they blink, if they lose concentration, if there's a particularly heavy warp storm in the warp, they'll lose their way. They'll get lost in the warp. Or if something in real space is so big that it casts a shadow in the warp, it can cause them to crash into it, and so on. So you have ships, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of ships that get lost in the warp. Now, billions make it through. It's kind of like, the statistics of car crashes, right? So ships get lost in the warp, and they drift for hundreds of years or potentially thousands of years. And like I said, time moves forward and backward in the warp. So you could have ships from the future come back to the past. You could have ships travel billions of years in the past and then come back to the future. They eventually kind of clump up. Sometimes they'll crash on lost planets that are in the warp. Sometimes they'll get smashed into comets. And you wind up with these planetesimal sized masses of rock, ice, and spaceships. And the Empire, the Imperium of Man, they know that there's two things on these ships. They don't just blast them when they drop into normal space. There might be artifacts from the Dark Age of technology that would be really useful to the Empire, or the ships, more likely than not, are loaded with gene stealer tribes, and possibly gene stealer hybrids. That's humans that the gene stealers have captured and implanted their DNA into, and they're slowly transmogrifying. So when one of these Space Hulks drops out of warp space back into normal space, the Empire will send a detachment of Terminator Marines, and they crash their landing pods into the sections of the ship, or the sections of the Space Hulk that are still determined to be inhabited and functional. And they'll have a mission to go in and see if they can find lost technology, lost Imperial artifacts, any alien technology that they might want to scavenge, examine, whatever, and to exterminate gene stealers and gene stealer cultists. So the game is fairly simple. You, as a player, either control an infinite number of gene stealers, or how many ever the scenario designates, or 5 to 10 Terminator Marines. Now that may sound a lot like a really lopsided battle, and it is, usually for the gene stealers. If the Marines can keep you at range, blasting away with their storm bolters, which are like double-barreled 40-millimeter grenade launching machine guns, or missile launchers, or assault cannons. if they can keep you at a distance, if the Marine player can keep you at a distance, it's never going to end well for the Gene Stealer. But once a Gene Stealer gets in close combat, the Gene Stealer is kind of a sinuous, sort of bug-like thing that's able to squeeze through vents and come up through the floor and drop out of the ceiling and come through sealed doors by tearing them open. And they can close up on the Marines. The Marines, despite being as tough as they are, in close combat, will generally get their asses kicked. The way the mechanic works for close combat is the Gene Stealer rolls 3d6, the Marine rolls 1d6, and whoever of the 3 dice, the Gene Stealer keeps the highest die, and the Marine, of course, has his die roll. So the Gene Stealer basically, through, I guess, to put it in D&D terms, would be claw, bite. I do admit I'm going to be showing a couple of editions of Space Hulk, and the Marine only has his power fist, this big electrically charged pneumatic ram that's bolted to his hand that he can try and punch the Gene Stealer with. If he lands a blow, that is, if he gets a higher die roll than the Gene Stealer does, of course, the Gene Stealer dies. And there's no hit points, there's no wound points to keep track of. It's just, if you get hit, you die. The Marine usually has objectives. Sometimes it's to recover an artifact, as I said. Sometimes it's to rescue. That's very rare, by the way. Sometimes it's to rescue a person or persons. Sometimes it's to deploy a poison. But the Marine always has a set starting space on the map, and the Gene Stealers have entry points all around the map where they can place what are called blips. Now, if you remember Aliens, you had the motion trackers. They're all around us, man. Hicks looking at his motion tracker there, or Hudson looking at his motion tracker. Well, that's represented in Space Hulk. The Gene Stealer player has a stack of counters that are called blips. And one side looks like the little motion tracker screen. And on the other side is the number of Gene Stealers that the Gene Stealer player will activate once he goes within line of sight with that blip with a Space Marine player. So a Space Marine player might be tracking a blip along the hall before he can actually see it. He can see it on his scanners, but he won't necessarily know how many are about to appear. Now, occasionally there's blips with a 0 on the bottom. Malfunction, maybe the motion tracker's picking up a swinging pipe hanging from the ceiling, or water dripping down or something like that. But throughout all this chaos, the Space Marine player has to get to a location and perform a task. Sometimes it's a suicide mission. Just get to the location, do the task, and the game is over. The survival of the Space Marine players is not paramount to the winning of the game. Sometimes the Space Marine player has to get to a point, perform a task, and get all the way back. Those are very tough missions, because typically, unless the scenario limits the Gene Stealer player, the Gene Stealer player has a planet-sized amount of Gene Stealers he can put in play. Now, the fortunate limiting factor is that in the box, there are 20 Gene Stealer miniatures and 10 Space Marine miniatures. The maximum number of Gene Stealers the Gene Stealer player can deploy is the number of miniatures he or she has free. So if you have 15 on the board and you have a blip that says 6, I don't think there's any 6 blips, but it could be wrong, and you turn it over, you lose that blip. It's just a scanner malfunction. You don't get the full 6. So if there's 20 Gene Stealer models on the board, that's all the Gene Stealer player gets, regardless of how many blips he may have ready to reveal. And now Mick has asked, do I have Space Hulk to show? Oh boy, do I! Now I have some painted Terminator minis, and I have some partially painted Gene Stealer minis. Yesterday, as I found out, this camera sucks for showing off the detail on minis. I really need a nice DSLR for that kind of thing, for better streaming purposes, which I don't have the cash for. So you would be better suited just looking at the box, and if you want to see what the minis look like, you can move on. Now I'm gonna grab Space Hulk. It's actually on the shelf behind me here. So, and Jem, you'll be disappointed to find out that I did not, in fact, remove my pants. If you can see my leg, here we are. So, there have been 4 editions of Space Hulk, and this is the first edition that I got. This is second edition. This actually came out in 1995, I believe. It was a very colorful box. Battle to the Death in the Chilling Depths of Space is what this is, and I'm going to take some items out of here so we can see them. We have the mission book, and this covers several scenario types. We'll just kind of pick one at random. Here's Decoy, and you see there's a map layout over here. There are starting spaces. Oops, it's a little. There are starting spaces. Those arrows indicate the entry points for Gene Stealers, and the yellow lines indicate the places where the Space Marine assault pods have landed. So you might say, okay, well, those are cool looking maps, but what of it? Well, one of the great appeals of Space Hulk is it comes with these geomorphic space tiles. And these are all very colorfully illustrated. I want to see if you can get that. See, there's cryopods here. There's lighting effects. Some cell shading on the art. And these are lovely. These are very, very nice pieces. And I'm so glad my set has held up. I got this for Christmas of 1996, I want to say. As I mentioned, here are blip counters. I just want to show these for a second. So, and this is a good example. I'm going to grab 2 of these here. Hello, Randy. Randy Buckness, folks. Let me tell you what. I've met many smart people when it comes to computer technology. None smarter than Randy. Randy taught me a lot of what I know, not just about the technology, but about dealing with people and technology. And Randy is just a swell guy. So here's a blip. There's a blip counter. You can see, it's got that kind of resonant star sort of thing there. Now, when the Gene Stealer player is ready to reveal his Gene Stealers, he flips it over, and as you can see, there's a number 3. So I would pull 3 Gene Stealer models and then place them where the Space Marine could see them. And here's a case of a 0. That's a scanner malfunction. Now, I, as the Gene Stealer, don't get to look at my blips, so I don't know when this will pop up. So I could get ready to ambush and kick the teeth of the Space Marine player, get into line of sight of the Space Marine, flip this counter over, and then I'm like, the sad trombone from Price is Right. Now, as far as combat, I kind of touched on it a little bit with the 3d6 thrown by the Space Marine and 1d6 or 3d6 thrown by the Gene Stealer and 1d6 thrown by the Space Marine. The Space Marine Sergeant, they do have a command unit, has a power sword, call it a magic sword, a lightsaber, whatever. He gets to add 1 to his d6 roll. So there's a slightly better chance he might be able to take down the Gene Stealers. Now, the other thing, and I'm talking all about second edition here. There's going to be some differences, and I'm going to show the third edition set I got too. The Space Marine player in second edition has shooting dice, and they're 6-sided dice. They've got these targeting pips, and then they've got hits. An empty targeting pip is a miss. That's obviously a hit. And then you got this, which depending on your stance, whether you're in Overwatch, which is your Marine is just standing there, he's got his gun set to just automatically shoot whatever comes in front of him. If he gets one of those or two of those in Overwatch, it's a hit. But normally, just in regular shooting combat, that or any combination thereof is a miss. And a final mention about Overwatch, there's also the jam die. It's a 6-sider blank on all sides except for the Thunderbolt strike there. If the Space Marine player jams, he has to spend action points clearing a jam. Every Space Marine, and this is relevant across all editions, every Space Marine has 4 action points. They can move a number of squares equal to their action points. They can go into Overwatch, which takes 2. They can open or close a door, which takes 1. Turning 180 degrees takes 2. Because again, they're wearing powered armor that's like, it's the size of a Geo Metro, and they're moving around in a hallway that's not much wider than that. They can sidestep, but they can't move diagonally. The Space Marine player also gets command points. It's them urging their men on, and they roll a 6-sided die to determine how many extra command points they have. So if you have one Space Marine that you really want to get into position to do something, you can spend all your command points. So he's got 4. Let's say you've got 5 extra command points. That one Marine can take up to 9 1-point actions or 4 2-point actions, and then have 1 left over, what have you. So as I said, it's a really, really simple, easy to learn system. I actually this is for Randy. I had this set when I worked at Star Systems. I used to bring this in, and Dave Perez, I think, in the IBM support group, is a big 40K guy, and he and I think at least once played some Space Hulk during lunchtime. But so this is second edition. I stupidly never bought a first edition set, and I wish I had. The miniatures aren't as nice as they are for second edition. The rules are much cooler because the rules include things like grenades. There's rules for grenades. There's also rules for psychic combat. And first edition also had 2 expansion packs. One called Gene Stealer, which has those human Gene Stealer hybrids that I mentioned. And the other is called Deathwing. And Deathwing is what made me fall in love with Space Hulk, because the Deathwing are a specific chapter of Terminator Marines. And whereas most of your 40K stuff on the Empire side is based very heavily in sort of a British Empire context, the Deathwing are Lakota Sioux, and the lore book that came with the Deathwing expansion explains how they went back to their home world to recruit more people into the Deathwing chapter, and found that their planet had been overrun by Gene Stealers, and how these 12 warriors, they did the ghost dance, they painted their armor white, and essentially sang their death song, and then went into battle They won. I think only 4 of the dozen or so Marines in the story survived, but they did win. That is, to me, the best 40K lore ever. So, first and second edition are fairly different in their presentation of the rules, but mechanically they're the same. There's no fancy shooting dice in first edition. They just use D6s and refer you to numbers. Like, a 1 on the dice designates the jam dice equals a jam. And so on. They also included psychic combat rules. You'd have psychers, that is, essentially a psyker in the 40K universe is a magic user. And I always missed not having the cool first edition stuff again. Well, back in 2009, Games Workshop released this, which is... Get this here. This is Space Hulk 3rd edition. 2nd edition went out of print, and Games Workshop released a 3rd edition of the game. And this is Man versus Alien in Desperate Battle. Box is very similar. We can take a look inside real quick. I'll hold that up again. There we go. So we have, again, the mission book, the rule book, and once again, a huge collection of tiles. This is a turn tracker, ammunition tracker if you have a unit that has the heavy assault cannon, and a command points tracker. And once again, we have these lovely, beautiful Space Hulk tiles in 2nd edition. And you can use these in 1st edition or use the 1st edition tiles in 2nd edition. It doesn't matter. I did mention earlier that there are doors that can be opened and closed. And yes, there are counters for the doors. So those are hatches that Space Marines can open and close. There are also bulkheads that the Space Marine player can seal shut, and the Gene Stealers can't break through. Now, if the Space Marine player wants to go back through, they can shoot those open, but obviously they can't be shut again. So, Space Hulk is a great game. There is a 4th edition with some slightly different rules and slightly different tiles, but it's essentially like this one. If you can find one, it goes for about $100, $120, I think, at last look, which sounds like a lot, I understand, but it's a Games Workshop board game. All of their board games are that much, so that's about average. And a deluxe board game these days, whether it's Games Workshop or who is it? They made Descent Journeys in the Dark. I'm sure it'll come to me later after this stream is over, probably. A copy of Descent is $125, $130. So a deluxe board game with lots of miniatures and complex rules and tiles and so on, that's about what it's going to cost you. As much as I hate Games Workshop's, in my opinion, extortionate prices, really, for what you get, that's about right. So if you go on eBay, you can probably grab a lightly used or unopened copy of Space Hulk for not too much money. I highly recommend it. It's simple enough that if you want to do the camera setup, and because of Scooby-Doo, if you want to do the camera setup on a table, and you and a friend use something like Discord or Skype or whatever to conduct your moves with one another, you can do that. It's not 40K. It is decidedly not Warhammer 40K. If you don't want to track down a used copy or can't track down a used copy, as I said, there's a first-person game based on the Deathwings missions, not the ones on their home planet, unfortunately. And these kind of ignore the lore from back in first edition. Like I said, Games Workshop got very grimdark and ignored the rule of cool after a while. So the Space Hulk first person shooter is a pretty good first person shooter. It's kind of in the vein of Left 4 Dead. You're leading a 3-man squad through a Space Hulk. There's like I want to say it's like 15 mission campaign mode, or you can play multiplayer with friends if you can find somebody who has it. But the other Space Hulk is Vengeance of the Blood Angels, which is the board game, and you can play it. You can get it on Steam and play it on Steam. So that is my Space Hulk talk. And as I said, trying to show you guys the miniatures would be an exercise in futility because of how not great this camera is. So if you want to see what Space Hulk minis look like, go on Google image search, and you can see the Gene Stealers and the Terminator Marines and the hybrids. Very nice setups of boards. So yeah, do that. But that's about what I've got for Space Hulk to talk about. So moving on to other topics, let's talk about D&D. I hope everybody out there, if you're still playing D&D and you're doing it online, you're having a lot of fun. I'm going to pick on Randy again. One of the most surprising things, and I guess it shouldn't, because I mean, geeks unite. When I was working with Randy at Star Systems back before the Earth cooled, I was getting ready for a game one Friday evening, and I was printing stuff out. And I had my D&D books on my desk and everything. And Randy sticks his head in my little office cube there, and says, "Oh, you play D&D?" I was like, "Yeah." "Do you?" He said, "Yeah." What levels have you guys played up to? And I was like, "Oh, well, I've got a crew that's starting out first level." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And I always wanted to talk to you about it more, but there was always stuff that just kind of popped up, work-related things that just seemed to get in the way. Work. What are you going to do, right? So I know, and I thank those of you who did from the bottom of my heart. I know a lot of you guys bought the Lost Crypt module that came out. It's been released. I believe the PDF is out. I could be wrong. So if I had one of my guests here, I could tell you for sure whether or not it was released in PDF. If you backed, your physical copy is shipping. With the way things are, I mean, I'm not in charge of it. I'm just the guy who wrote it. Contract work for Frog God Games, who are great guys, by the way. I just lest anyone think that I'm throwing shade at them. I am not. I love Frog God. Matt's super. Zach is awesome. But it's coming. Everything's slowed down right now. Even like I needed a cable. My wife is working from home now, obviously, and her laptop only has DisplayPort out. Well, we don't have any monitors with DisplayPort. 3 weeks ago, I could have logged on to Amazon and had a DisplayPort to HDMI adapter box or bidirectional cable to my house before 3 o'clock that afternoon. Now it's like the cable will get here on the 27th. So, but what that has to do with Lost Crypt is Lost Crypt will be sent. So check your backer updates if you got that. And speaking of Lost Crypt, that dovetails very nicely into what I wanted to discuss next, which is a little bit of history about Lost Crypt. Now, if you didn't receive one of my pieces of spam about Lost Crypt and you haven't seen any of my Facebook posts about what it is, um, as I have said before, and I know those of you watching are aware of this, uh, I was fortunate enough to be able to do some work for Gary Gygax back in the early 2000s. It was awesome. I absolutely loved it. I have no regrets. The last project that I worked on, not the last project that I was scheduled to work on because we had other things in the pipeline that he had tapped me for. But the last project that I worked on for Gary was a module set in his home Greyhawk campaign. It was from back in the day, and it was called Teeth of the Barkish Nor. Now, if you have a Dungeon Master's Guide, you can crack it open, look under artifacts. There's a set of teeth. They're not dentures, they're actual individual teeth that a character can replace one of their own with. Kind of gross. Hurts my jaw just to think about. Called the Teeth of the Dalvernar. And each tooth has a magic power, and multiple teeth allow more magic powers. And if you have a full set, you've got you've got unlimited cosmic power and a much higher dental bill. So Gary put a sub-level in the Castle Greyhawk dungeons all the way at the bottom that was a pocket dimension. And this dimension had a lot of strange environments in it. It had swamps, it had a desert whose sands looked like gold dust, but of course it wasn't, because, hey, that's Gary, right? And there was a reverse direction a reverse direction area of the map where you could say, we're going north, and you'd find yourself on the southern edge of the map again. Or say, we're going south, and then you'd traverse all the way to the north. There were a lot of cool monsters. There were living topiary monsters that could attack you. There was grass that would fire reeds at you like arrows. There was a visible stalker. That's basically an invisible stalker, but made visible, that would attack the party. And it was all very notional stuff. There were very sparse notes. I can tell you that the entirety of the module that I saw was 6 pages, 8 pages, and 4 of those were maps, and one of the pages of notes looked like it was on the back of a convenience store receipt. It was literally a slip of paper like that big. And all of this comprised Gary's module, the quest for the Teeth of the Barkish Nor. He wanted a full-blown module made out of those notes and asked for volunteers. I had already done 3 city modules for Gary's re-envisioned Greyhawk, which was called Yigsburg for legal reasons. And I just said, sure, I'll do it. I raised my hand. And so I did it. And I turned it in to Trollord Games and to Gary, and it got delayed for reasons that I got to be honest. I can't really go into the reasons. If you know me on a personal level, I've explained to you why it didn't happen. So the module was basically delayed. Gary passed away, and that was that. And it sat unpublished and won't, to the best of my knowledge, be published. But, and this is important, there is a section of the module that I wrote whole cloth myself, got Gary's approval to put in. It's a dungeon. It's a small dungeon. It's something you could run a party through probably in an evening or two. Well, I looked at this, and it was a little less than a year ago, I think. I don't remember the exact. I want to say is last April. But I sat down and I looked at the manuscript of what I had done, and I said, this is entirely portable. This is standalone. You can take my dungeon out, break the connections to the larger quest, and you get a perfectly workable standalone module that was still approved by Gary and was in a Gygax module. So I went to a couple different publishers, but ultimately Frog God Games, Matt Finch, God bless you if you're out there listening or watching, Matt, looked at my work and said, "This is great. This is good stuff." So if you have backed Teeth of the Barkish Noir, or if you have backed the Lost Crypt, what you're getting is a piece of the Teeth of the Barkish Noir. There's a couple of encounter area maps. There's a lot of cool stuff in. There's an essay by myself when I talk about meeting Gary, working for Gary, getting to know Gary a little bit. And I think you'll find it's a pretty good book. It's a shame that Teeth of the Barkish Noir won't ever see the light of day. I mean, unless Gail Gygax was to, completely go 180 degrees and then stay 180 degrees from where she is now with regard to the publication of Gary's RPG materials. You might see it then, but I honestly, personal opinion, I'm not bashing Gail. I just don't see that happening. So if you don't have it, keep an eye on Frog God. Sorry, I just had a message pop up there. If you don't have it, keep an eye on Frog God's website. See when it goes on sale. And if you did back it, thank you so much. And even if you didn't back it, thank you for listening to me ramble. Thank you, everyone out there who's been listening to me run my mouth so far today. Now, when the physical copy comes out, this is for my Orlando friends alone. When the physical copy comes out, and all of this Scooby-Doo is able to end, I will autograph your copy. And a friend of mine, he is an artist from the days of original D&D, but he lives not too far from me. His name's Tracy Lesh. If you've got a copy of OD&D and all the supplements, if you flip through, the artist Tracy Lesh, he lives not too far from me. He's a great guy, and he did some of the artwork on this. I said, hey, if you guys are going to publish this, what better way to do this than get an OD&D artist to illustrate part of it? And so they graciously allowed Tracy to do some beautiful, beautiful color piece in the book. But Tracy and I will autograph your copy. And when physical copies are available for sale, and again, the crisis is over, go to Gods and Monsters, and if they have copies on the shelves, buy one there. And if they don't, ask them to get it. Todd and Anna run Gods and Monsters, and this video is not sponsored by them. I don't get anything out of it other than helping a friend's business. They are going to want and need as much of a boost as possible after the dust settles. And if you're thirsty, check out the Gods and Monsters Facebook page. Their bar, Vault 5421, has to be shuttered right now, but you can still buy package deals from them. And I'm going down there Friday and going to get myself some cider. And hopefully I'm going to find out if they got some New Glarus, some spotted cow, that's very delicious, and some craft sodas, and pick up my comic books and everything, because they'll do curbside service. That's right, curbside service at Gods and Monsters. They will bring it out to your vehicle. They're located down on International Drive. Look them up on Facebook. Look them up on the Google Maps. Their address is 5421 International Drive, Orlando, Florida. And that's not a commercial. Again, they didn't pay me for that. Nothing. They are just wonderful, lovely people, and I care deeply for them. Wow, I've been running my mouth for a while. So, what is anyone else doing with their time now that you're kind of, we're all sort of stuck at home, gaming wise, hobby wise. Anybody doing anything fun? Anybody doing anything exciting? I'm going to go out tomorrow. Not out. I'm going to go outside tomorrow, and finally, at long last, weather permitting, watch. And now that I've decided on it, it'll rain or something, but I am going to airbrush. I got an inexpensive airbrush a couple of years ago for Christmas, and I have never had the time to sit down and do airbrushy stuff. So tomorrow I'm going to airbrush, and what I'm going to do, actually, coincidentally, is airbrush some Gene Stealers. And I'm gonna stand up here. And now the question is, do you get the crotch or do you get the ass? I'm going to airbrush these Gene Stealers. I have constructed an armature here with Gene Stealers on. Again, that's about as good. That's what I was saying earlier about autofocus on this thing. It don't. But these are just stuck on here with some blue tack. I have Secret Weapons miniatures, custom bases. Those are like the deck plating, if you remember in Aliens rather, when they had started to put their resinous alien crap on the walls and on the floor. That's what these bases look like. There's like steel plating, but it's got the viney growths all over it. And so I have these. I have others that are partially painted, but I want to just knock these out. Just airbrush them all the blue shade of their carapace, then come in and hit the details of individual shades for their claws, for their exposed muscles, for their purple tongues, and then dot their green eyes and paint the nice metallics and yellows for the bases there. But I'm going to airbrush tomorrow. Come hell or high water, I'm going to do it. It's been too long. And as far as this armature I've got, this is something I made. If you're army painting right now, or you've got a crap load of kobolds or what have you, you can take something like this. This is a large paint stick, a paint mixer. This is just from Home Depot, and a piece of dowel. And I clamped it with one of my, I have these lovely little things. This is $10 for a package of clamps, and just a little bit of wood glue and this handle. And I used blue tack to stick down the base of each mini. Now what I can do is, regardless of what kind of minis I've got, I can just come through with an airbrush or a spray can and just assembly line paint these without having to slowly do each one individually. I can just knock them out with a rattle can or with an airbrush, and then when they're done, I can pop them off and put them on caps to come back and do individual details. And then, I can reuse this rod for future army projects, because I've got a lot of goblins and a lot of kobolds and stuff like that. Big hordes of monsters that I don't really care about getting super detailed about. But this cost me $0. I got the dowel out of the scrap box at Home Depot, and they gave me I asked for, and they gave me one of these large paint mixers. So if you want to paint, do mass painting, you can. There we go. You can build yourself an armature. Don't listen to GW and try and buy one of their expensive plastic adjustable handles. There's no need to. This costs, well, we'd have to say it costs like $2 because you need the poster stuff to stick those on and the wood glue to stick the handle on. So if you're gonna mass paint, you're gonna do bulk painting, bulk army painting, get or make yourself something like this, or you could just glue them to old plastic plate. Go to the dollar store and get a package of plastic picnic plates and use Elmer's glue to stick them down to that. Don't use crazy glue to hold your minis to your armatures. That it ends in tears. If the bottom of the mini and the thing you're putting it on are metal, you might have an okay time of getting them off. But like if you're using, say, a plastic bottle cap, the crazy glue will melt that slightly. And then if your miniature's base is plastic, they're pretty much stuck together forever. You'll have to cut it off, and you might ruin a nicely painted mini. So use poster tack, use Elmer's glue. In fact, I would say don't even bother with Elmer's glue. I would just use blue tack. It's do I have some up here? Yes. It's just this stuff. Looks like don't eat it. It's not tasty. So you can just little blob of that about the size of a BB, stick it to the bottom of your miniature, stick it to your armature, whether it's a large scale one like this or just a small one like that. I have recently switched from the plastic bottle caps to be or not to be to these large corks here. That had some Elmer's holding it on and it fell off. My wife's cat knocked this off the table and knocked the mini off of it and bent the sword, I think. Yay. But yeah, I'll stick a mini to this. Let me get one that's actually stuck to it, and I can show you what I mean. Get a handle on that. Like I said, I have a disproportionately large amount of 40K minis, even though I'm not in 40K. Here's like a Sister in Battle that I'm painting up for the missus. But it's there on the cork, so when I want to paint, I just dab at it there, not worried about touching the mini over and over again. So that's those bottle caps, what have you. Another thing, speaking of, since I've kind of gone into painting hardware a little bit, Mag Eyes. I was talking about these yesterday. Get your Mag Eyes. I absolutely must have these to paint. I know it's weird. Like, oh my gosh, how could Bill look nerdier? Well, they are. This is a 2-power lens. And without this, I am basically not able to paint. And now I can see, I can see all the details on the Mini with the 2-power. My wife, Colleen, is always after me. Why don't you just get a pair of reading glasses? Well, those aren't painting glasses. These are painting glasses. And you can do any kinds of art. So the thing I like about them is you can pull them down here, and if I'm working here, all I have to do is look up. I don't have to readjust these. I can just be down here working in detail and then look up, back down. And I don't have to touch the boom, the cantilever mechanism. I love some delicious fresh cantilever. Actually, that was a terrible, terrible joke. So what else is happening gaming-wise, tabletop gaming-wise? Like I said, I'm just going to keep beating on this drum. Oh, drop something here. Just going to keep beating on this drum because it bears repeating. Don't let your tabletop gaming die on the vine. Don't stop gaming. You can use webcam, Discord, Roll20, Skype, Facebook chat, anything that allows you to electronically communicate with someone. Hey, presto, you've got a place to play D&D. You don't even have to use an online tool that has a built-in die roller. If you trust the people that you're gaming with enough, or you just tell them roll on the table and I'll let you know, then all you need is some kind of group chat tool. That's it. I kind of prefer the feeling that I'm at a table still with friends and acquaintances. So I like the virtual dice, the virtual tabletop tools. If you're slowly ramping up to this and you're warming up to the idea of, okay, well, if I'm going to be stuck at home, I can do the electronic communication thing. If you start out slow with a mobile device, what have you, and just gradually work into it. I mean, and hell, I may go to a multi-camera setup here for the Monday night games, but you don't have to. The important thing, I want to reiterate this, just want to drive this home. You don't have to stop gaming because of this. This doesn't have to ruin your hobby. On the exact opposite tip, this can grow the hobby because, AMC has closed its doors. I don't know what the other theaters are doing, probably following suit. Theme parks are shut. I mean, wherever you are in the world, there's probably some kind of place where you can go and get to. I mean, there's public attractions in Gadsden, Alabama, for God's sake, that are probably now closed. So what to do? I mean, after you binged The Mandalorian and Stranger Things and Mr. Robot 30 times each, what do? If you love tabletop gaming, if you love role-playing games, get online. Reach out to your friends. Find a group. Join up with somebody who's doing it. I had 3 or 4 people yesterday in the chat say that they'd like to jump on. My Monday night game is about to explode. I may have to start turning people away. I don't want to, but at the same time, if I wake up tomorrow and I've got 30 people who want to play, boy, I'm going to feel dumb. There's actually a really good opportunity here, and don't let this gray cloud that's passing over completely wreck your love for the hobby. If you love D&D, if you carefully acquired a group of players and your game is nascent, don't say, oh well, we can't go out, we can't get together. That died on the vine. No, it's not going to. It doesn't have to. Phone, laptop, desktop, tablet, some kind of camera, voice tool, and Discord, and or Roll20, or any other kind of virtual tabletop, and that's all you need. That's all you need. I've got the kick-ass Dwarven Forge that I'm going to have cameras pointed at and minis and stuff like that. But you don't have to have all that. You absolutely don't have to have all that. So what's doing out there, guys? What's going on? How is everyone's gaming going? Are you kind of doing it as an escape, as a decompress? I am. I mean, that's why I'm pounding on this so much. I want everyone to keep gaming and to keep happy and to keep their spirits up. So how about some infield chatter there? Let me scroll down. Is there anything? Oh yeah. Hey. So
Oh, thank you, Gav. Yes, I love my shirt. I didn't realize that I had scrolled off. Vallejo Air, Nick saying Vallejo Air. Uh, Now, I'm going to ask Mick a question. And Randy, I'm sorry, missed you. I'll catch you up later, I'm sure. Uh, but I have heard that a 50-50 mix of airbrush thinner and regular paint is good to airbrush with. Uh, Mick, if you could come back to me in the chat and say, uh, hey, Gav, it's good to see you. I'm sorry I lagged behind. Um, Create resources on witch hunts in the 16th century. Very cool. That sounds neat. Um, if you're going to stick a little fantasy in there, Gav, I can recommend A Midsummer's Tempest by Poul Anderson. Uh, Really, it's a hell of a good book. Um, Highly recommend. It's Shakespearean fantasy mixed with English history, right around just a little before then. Um, I'm trying. It's part of the English Civil War, the Cavaliers and the Roundheads. So you might tap that if you haven't already as a resource. So yeah, I haven't started spraying yet. I want to. Tomorrow I think is the day. Uh, the kit that I have came with a very inexpensive gun. Um, the whole kit was $50, so I figure if it sucks, if it doesn't do, if it doesn't do for me, if I just want to go back to using rattle can for large painting, um, then uh, you know, nothing really lost. The whole gun kit was only 50. I've been to art supply stores and I've seen guns that cost like $300. So I imagine there is an upper end of this that's a hobby of its own. Matthew Hopkins. What's the question, Gav? You're saying Matthew Hopkins? I'm not sure. Mick, what do you do for? It's hot and dry. If you mean weather-wise, as far as shutdowns or anything, schools, uh, large places of public gathering, of course, Vault 5421. Unfortunately, yeah, I'm not going to do enamel. If you get enamel paint on something, it's on there forever. Anything that deals with polymers on that level, I'm afraid of. Like, unless what you're putting it on, you can throw in turpentine and scrub to the end of it. Just put like aircraft paint stripper on, which will basically dissolve plastic. It turns plastic into mush. Um, you know. Oh, okay. Reading Gav's comment on Matthew Hawkins. Um, yeah, that's. I unfortunately I know very little about that period of history in England. I mean, you guys basically uh, start by trying to tax us, then things go quiet, then we save your asses in 2 world wars. Is essentially what we're taught about English history, and then the Beatles and Princess Diana and the Falklands, and then Princess Diana dies, and Harry and Meghan. That's it with a capital I, capital T, unfortunately. I mean, I know there's more than that. I'm not ironically joking about your country's rather textured millennial length history or anything like that. I'm just saying that's the reflection of it in most American culture and mindset. Revolutionary War, quiet for a long time. Maybe War of 1812, quiet for a long time. We Save You in 2 World Wars, quiet for a long time. Then the Beatles, then Princess Di gets married, then Princess Di dies. The Falklands happen somewhere in there, and today. So, I know more than that, obviously, but so here's a question. Let me just throw this out there. Does anyone, and I have a specific reason I'm asking this, although you can respond generally. Does anyone out there do any kind of cosplay, whether you like go to events regularly or you just kind of like to make your own stuff just to look cool? Does anyone at all? I'm just curious. And the reason I ask is I was thinking, I just kind of got this crazy, insane idea. I was looking at the cost of MDF, that's it. I was going to say PVA. I'm going to come back to that in just a second, Gab. I want to tell you guys a funny story. I was looking at MDF foam and I was thinking, how cool would it be to make a Space Marine costume? Because there's instructions out there. It's very costly. It's just, man. And it's time consuming. There's guys who have, like, no offense to them. I mean, they just look very basic, like the earliest drawings of Space Marines, and they spent a year and a couple of grand on. And then you get to the elaborate ones that have lights and they make sounds and they look like metal. And it's like, well, let's see. I could make a Space Marine costume like that, or I could buy another car. So, medieval college, and this is relevant to D&D for a big reason. And I don't want to. Get a message. Hang on a second. I don't want to inadvertently detract. So there's a video, and some of you might not remember this, but during the 1980s into the mid 1990s, there was an absolutely fantastic band. I love all of their work out of the UK called the KLF. What does the KLF stand for? It literally depends on what day of the week you talk to Jimmy Cauty, but most of the time he said it meant Conspiracy Liberation Fuckers. They were also known as the Time Lords. If you remember Doctor Who, Doctor and the TARDIS, that's the KLF. They're the JAM, the Justified Agents of Mumu. One of the songs that they did was called America, What Time Is Love? And hang on a second, I have to close a tab. So the song America, What Time Is Love is it's a strange video. It's shot in an ocean. Yes, the jams. Gab knows what time it is. It's 3 a.m. eternal, my friend. Well then, Gav, this is gonna rock your world. So the video for America, What Time of Love, it's fantasy themed, so it's relevant to our interest. Has the band, has the KLF on a Viking longship in an ocean tank, where they film sea scenes. And they have it going full blast hurricane. 10-foot waves in the tank, rain blowing everywhere, the ship's rocking side to side, just back and forth, and you've got this hard edge groove version of America, What Time Is Love blasting, and there's this topless young lady with a Viking short sword, and she's yelling, she's belting out the lyrics along with the rest of the band, and it's an amazing spectacle. So here's this is the interesting the interesting part that's relevant to our interest beyond it just being kind of fantasy themed. The longboat that's in that tank was found at Pinewood Studios. It is the longboat that was in the Terry Gilliam comedy Eric the Viking. And for the film, they had it flying from cables. It was a flying longboat. So there were holes in it. So it had to be patched and it had to be made watertight so it wouldn't kill everyone on the boat, obviously. So to get it looking like a proper English longboat and to have armor for the crew, because the crew's wearing early plate armor in the video, they turned to a history student to help them out with all of these tasks and to be on the boat. And this history student it's a blink and you'll miss it. I don't know exactly where he is, but he's one of the crewmen on the boat, tilling the oars in this massive storm while the band is on a platform on the stern castle, just jamming away and swinging out on the ropes over the water. And it's, like I said, it's quite a spectacle. The history student who is in that video is Stuart Marshall, a buddy of mine who's very active on the internet over at the Knights and Knaves Alehouse forum. And let me see, he's on Knights and Knaves, he's on Facebook, but he is in that video. And he tells a much better story about working for the KLF that day than I do. But yeah, so if you go online and look for the America What Time Is Love video on YouTube, you will see Stuart Marshall, creator of Osric, one of the creators of Osric, the AD&D open source version, and he's in that video, and I just think that's one of the coolest things. And yes, Gav, you're 100% right. The KLF did burn they burned 1 million pounds on a remote Scottish island. The weirdos that they are. I read an interview with Bill Drummond some years ago, and he definitely regretted doing it. It's like, well, sometimes you do things for art that aren't quite so wise. So yeah, that's the tie-in between the KLF, America What Time Is Love, and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There's your 3 degrees of separation. Stu Marshall is in the video, helped them put the boat together, and co-wrote Osric with Matt Finch and some other folks. I'm going to ask you guys to hang on just a second. I just need to tend to the door here. Sorry, I sort of have my door booby-trapped to keep cats out. Yes, Tammy Wynette. They called her up in Tennessee and said, Tammy, stand by your jams. So that's the KLF story. But I have my office door slightly booby-trapped. My wife's cat is a lovely beast, but she thinks anything that's on my table doesn't need to be on my table. And that includes minis that I'm working on painting, bottles of paint, pieces of Dwarven Forge, books, just what have you, she'll gently slide them back off. So I think I've kind of run out of steam for the day. I'm probably gonna go ahead and call it here in just a minute. But I wanted to thank everyone again for participating. Tomorrow I'm going to do some Antique Roadshow, some D&D Antique Roadshow. I'll talk about just about anything else. I'll probably start off with the same public service announcement about getting out and playing D&D, playing your favorite RPGs online. I want everyone to keep doing that, and I want everyone to keep hope alive. It sounds cheesy, but let us not forget there is hope. This will pass. And one way to keep your chin up and stay happy is to do things that make you happy and do things that are fun. And tabletop gaming is fun. Tomorrow, I'm going to start the Antiques Roadshow. We're going to go back in time. We're going to go back, and I'm going to talk about the history of original D&D, the books. Let me be clear. I'm not diving in to the office politics of TSR about Arneson versus Guy. I'm not going down that road. I'm going to talk about the game of Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to go over the history of the core rules. I'll run my mouth about the hobby some more. I may show off some more crap. I don't know, because God knows I've got a lot of crap to show off. Thank you, Mick. Thank you to everyone who jumped in. Thank you, Randy Buckness. Thank you, Mick Leach. Thank you, Jem Hawk, and everybody else. Good night, America. We love you. And I am out of here.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere, in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around, some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle, way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take